Welcome to Red Sox Digest, the only show where pain, sarcasm, and a dash of hope collide nightly like a Trevor Story strikeout. We cover every loss, every meltdown, and yes, even the rare win, with brutally honest takes and zero front office fluff. Subscribe today at RedSoxDigest.com or risk being left out in the cold like a home game in April. And now, here's the crew at Red Sox Digest.
Good evening, Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of Red Sox Digest. My name is Jim Dalfino, and I am your host for this evening. So we haven't seen or been live since Sunday because of the All-Star game and the star-studded reserves that played on Tuesday night. The rest of us were left staring at the calendar, counting down the hours until this season could resume. Today's gut punch loss to the Cubs reminded us exactly why taking time off never works well when you have a big streak. I am joined tonight with Nick Face, who has been binge-watching Fever Pitch and reruns of Sox Appeal. And I'm also joined by Nick Diamond, who was wondering if we could have a ghost runner and a swing-off at the same time. Let's get into it. Nick Face, I want to start with you. What's your reactions today to the loss to the Cubs?
It was kind of a boring, lackluster game. The biggest things that stood out to me were Gialito's first inning. That's what pretty much annihilated them from the start. But Abraham Toro, Abe Toro, guys. I know we're going to spend some time talking about good old Abe, and I don't mean Abe Lincoln. We got to figure out something here to do because it's becoming a problem that I think we need to address. It doesn't mean that I'm not convinced that they can get something going Saturday and Sunday. I do think it's the first game back from an all-star break. I expected it to be a little lackluster in fairness to some of the players. They've been off since Sunday, majority of them. So I'm not going to flip out. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to get over down, I guess, on the team. I think that we need to see what's going to happen here and something's got to click. Hopefully tomorrow night.
Nick Diamond, your reactions to today's loss?
Yeah, more of the same. You know, I was kind of expecting a loss coming after the All-Star break and 10 straight wins. The first inning of Giolito was a letdown. He had the first two batters of the game were a walk, and then the Seiya Suzuki hit the bomb, and then it was pretty much over after that, you know. Besides that, Lucas Giolito looked fine. I wasn't really disappointed in his outing besides that first inning. Like Nick brought up Abraham Toro, that was a boneheaded mistake. And, you know, he's been pretty bad of late, so I think we're going to get into that later in the show. But it was kind of what I was expecting. Again, I'm not super worried, but it wasn't a really great game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree with both of you on that. My take is that, you know, it's tough. They won 10 in a row. You know, you're facing a tough team. So I kind of almost expected them to lose this game for no other reason other than the fact that it's just Murphy's Law. That being said, I wanted to start off our first point on Lucas Giolito because I think this is a really important one. 2 walks to start the game, I believe, and then the 3-run bomb to Suzuki, who already had 25 home runs on the season. I feel like maybe there should have been a little bit more concern with pitching to him. Maybe it's the layoff and not being into major league games for that period of time. But my question to either one of you, I'll start with Nick Diamond. Is Giolito's outing today concerning to you moving forward and with our thought that he is our number 2 starter right now?
I'm not really concerned yet. Besides that first inning, he looked okay. You know, it was 3 runs in the first, and then there was 1 earned after that. But those 2 walks were kind of concerning early on. You can't do that against a good team. This Cubs lineup stacked at least 1 through 5. So they're going to make you pay if you walk the first 2 batters of an inning, no matter what happens. And you could say the same thing about any team in the league, even if the Rockies or the Nationals. But especially the Cubs, you can't walk the first 2 batters of the game. But I think there was a little concern of his velocity was down in the beginning. But once he got to the middle innings, I think in the 4th and 3rd inning, he hit 96. So that's where he was while he was in his good stretch. So I'm not concerned at the moment. Do I love him as my 2 guy? No, but I think he's a great 3 guy, and I still think he'll be fine going forward. Is he going to be that guy with a sub-1 ERA over a 6-game stretch? I don't think so, but he might be more of a guy of a 4 ERA, a 3.5 ERA, which I'm totally fine with if that's all he is. But I think at the deadline, you got to add a guy above him.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit later because there's been some chatter on Twitter with Kenny Rosenthal and so forth. So I definitely want to get into that as we go along today. Nick Face, same question to you. Giolito, is this just a blip to you, a little bit of rust because of the off days, or are you a little concerned? Are you ready to hit the panic button?
I have to tell you, I was actually pretty happy because he came back after that first inning and threw a quality start. I think that was the biggest takeaway from me. After that first inning, and I think the Red Sox ERA for starting pitching is over 6 in the first inning. That just can't continue to happen. That's a terrible trend, especially right now when you're up against the Cubs, the Dodgers, and so on and so forth for the rest of the month. It's going to be a tough stretch here for this team. I was very pleased, though, that he came back second inning on and gave us a quality outing and very well could have still won this game. Very well could have. The concern, obviously, from the beginning was location and the walks. I mean, we all know the story of walks. Walks kill, especially back-to-back, and that's exactly what happened. Definitely a mislocation to Suzuki on that home run as well. I think overall, though, and I have to say, I think all Knicks think alike. It's just one of those things. Yes, Giolito being my 2 still does scare me a bit. I don't have the trust there yet to give him that number 2, role, to tell you the truth. He's a 3 for me. I'm comfortable with him as a 3. If you're asking him to do anything more than a 3, that means that your depth for your pitching is lacking. And that's something that this team desperately needs a 2 guy. Desperately. If they want to rumble and roll here with some of the cream of the crop right now, you need that 2. I don't think Bayo can do that, guys. I don't. That's another name that I'm sure we're going to be talking about later because he's throwing tomorrow night. He's not a 2. He ain't a 1 at all. So you have to figure out what you're going to do with that. So I'm not terribly concerned with this outing. I have to say I'm not. I think that this is just one of those things where Lucas Giolito is who he is. He's not going to be the guy going up the Nationals, the Reds, and the Rockies. It's just not going to happen like that, or even the Rays. It's a much superior team being the Cubs, and today the Cubs got the better hand. That's bottom line.
So my take on Giolito is I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. If something like this comes about in his next start, maybe I start getting a little worried. I'm just going to say that this is a little bit of a rust. But when you break it down, to your point, after the first inning, he did settle down. He didn't let this get out of hand. And he wound up, throwing 5 1/3 innings. So you got 16 outs, and 6 of them were strikeouts. So, it was almost a third where he kept the ball off the field. So I think that's okay. If he went to 6, it would have been a quality start. Cora took him out after 98 pitches. So the pitches were a little high, not going to lie there. 65 for strikes. Percentage-wise, not too terrible. I think, it's one of those things where he'll be okay. But I want to stay on this topic because a lot has been going on this week about the possibility of trades and where the Red Sox might fit into this as it relates to either going forward with more pitching or, a first baseman or even in the bullpen. So Kenny Rosenthal had spoken on, it was either Fox or in The Athletic or whatnot, and he said that he didn't think that the Red Sox needed to go out and potentially get a number 2, quote, starter, that they could deal with someone lower down the pipeline. Now, while someone lower down the pipeline probably would cost less, I don't think that's the smart way to go. I would rather go after a top-tier talent, call it a number 2, which then pushes everybody down the line. So Giolito becomes your 3, Bayo becomes your 4, and so forth. I think that would be the smart thing to do. Additionally, when you look at someone like either Joe Ryan or Nathan Eovaldi, who does have both, I think they both have a couple years left on their contract. Joe Ryan is making peanuts. Nathan Eovaldi, I think, is a 2-year, $50 million deal left. I think it was $375 altogether. He would require a little bit more in terms of you eating more of his money or maybe finding a way for the Rangers to eat some of that in a trade for a better piece. What I'm trying to say is that The Red Sox have spent, when you look back at guys like Garrett Richards and James Paxton and all these guys that they've brought in on rehab assignments, it's been almost $200 million that they've spent in the last 3 or so years. And they have nothing to show for it except 2 last place finishes. So wouldn't it make a lot more sense to get somebody in here like probably more Ryan over Eovaldi, even though I have it in the ticker down below, and maybe offering him an extension so that you can have him right after Crochet for 5 or 6 more years? Nick, face you first. What do you want to do in terms of either pitching or hitting or both for this deadline? What do you think they need to do?
Pitching's number one, 100%. I'm fine with either of Joe Ryan or Eovaldi. I have to say Eovaldi is probably number one on my list because of past history. That's the big reason with Nate. We know he's nasty. We know he loves Boston. We know he's a hero amongst us. If he came back here, that would be wonderful. But we definitely need another hitter. I'm at the point right now where there's no thump. There's nothing scary right now in this lineup, to tell you the truth. You know, you can have a Roman Anthony, or you can have maybe Trevor Story gets hot for a day or something like that. There's no thump. You need something there that can lengthen out this lineup. And I'm not saying you need a number 3, 4 hitter. It'd be great if you could, depending upon what the price is. But you need something to lengthen your lineup out. I am done with Abe Toro. I'm done. So we need to figure something else out to do on that front. I am intrigued on the Joe Ryan story because what we saw over the All-Star break is we saw a lot of Alex Bregman and Garrett Crochet together with Joe Ryan at the All-Star game. Lots of pictures, lots of conversations, lots of chatter. The Red Sox were in heavy talks during the offseason regarding Joe Ryan. I believe Tristan Casas' name came up a few times and a few of the other guys. So this is a guy that the Red Sox have had on their radar for quite some time. The question here, guys, comes down to what price do you pay to make this happen? And I have to say, so long as it's not Roman Anthony, I go Joe Ryan. I do. And Nick, I'm going to say even Marcelo Meyer's name in this conversation now. I believe the last time when we were together, I was a little hesitant on it. I think now, after kind of understanding a little bit more about this team come the All-Star break and now seeing where this tough competition is at. And I was actually surprised too to look at the statistic from last season, and we were at the exact same point last All-Star break. Believe we opened up against the Dodgers and the Dodgers swept us. So I think we were feeling pretty okay at the All-Star break this time last year, which is shocking to me. And then it all went downhill from there. I'm done. I'm done with going downhill. I'm done. It is time to get some big boy names in here. It is time to put the pedal to the metal and get the damn job done. Because I am not going through another end of summer spiel here where this team falls out of contention and sucks yet again. I'm done. So go out and get it, Craig Breslow. Go and do it.
Nick Diamond, same question to you. Joe Ryan, Nathan Eovaldi. Do you agree with Kenny Rosenthal that we don't need a number 2 starter? We need someone down the road, or would you rather have someone slotting in behind Crochet?
Well, I think the story was with Kenny Rosenthal was Charlie Morton, which is one of the last guys I'd want. Joe Ryan and Nathan Eovaldi are 1A, 1B to me. I'd probably, like Nick Face said, I'd probably prefer Eovaldi just because I think he'd be a little cheaper considering the contract. He is owed more money and prior success in Boston. But Joe Ryan's a little bit younger. I think he's got less injury history, and I would be ecstatic if we got him. And like Nick Face said about the package, I see a lot of Red Sox fans on Twitter hesitant to trade Peyton Tolley. And if the Twins came asking for a guy, Peyton Tolley, I'd give him up instantly for a guy like Joe Ryan. And like you said, Marcelo Meyer, I think I'd put him on the trading block as well if it was Joe Ryan. I do think there's a few other guys that I'd be okay with. I'd be okay with like a Mitch Keller if you can get like a reliever with him, like David Bednar and Mitch Keller type of package from the Pirates. I think that would be acceptable. Edward Cabrera and Ronnie Henriquez from the Marlins, I think that would be acceptable. But I don't think those guys are better than Lucas Giolito and Brian Bayo at the moment. I think they're about on the same level as them. but I would prefer to get a 2-starter. But if it's Charlie Morton, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't think he's that much better than Walker Buehler at this point. And you also brought up about improving at first base. I think that's necessary. I do. I don't know if it needs to be Eugenio Suarez or Naylor. I think those guys are going to cost a lot, and you're going to get in bidding wars with the Yankees and other teams. But a Ryan O'Hearn, a Carlos Santana, I think that might be something you have to do, because Abraham Toro he's been bad lately, and the boneheaded mistake today might have cost you the game.
Yeah, I want to get into Abraham Toro a little bit more in depth in a few minutes, but I want to kind of feed off both of your points and just offer a little bit of my own thoughts.
Yeah, and before you go to yours, can I mention one more name so we can have just a quick,
please,
just name them and then we can
please
discuss it. Can we also talk Chris Sale, because that's also been talked about as well. I think there's mixed emotions with that. We've heard the Braves are not selling. They're not going to make it happen. So I think if we want to discuss even that potential name too, I think it's worthy.
Yeah. I didn't have it in the chat down below here with my lower third, but I did have that as a tweet. And of course, Joe Ryan won that tweet on a poll that I ran. Here's the other thing that I want to consider. If you believe, as a Red Sox fan, that the Boston Red Sox have a window here because they signed Crochet for the first large money that they have had in years outside of Rafael Devers for a long-term deal, I'm saying, especially for pitching, then you have to build around him. My point that I'm getting to is the off-season, and I know this is way in advance, but bear with me for a minute. This offseason, the pitching market is not that great. You have guys like Framber Valdez. You have guys like Ranger Suarez. You have Walker Buehler. You have Lucas Giolito. The names aren't great. The problem is, though, is that there's going to be competition for those guys regardless. And you run the risk of getting into another $100 million deal with these cast of characters when you could just simply go out and trade for Joe Ryan and get him into an extension and extend him 4 more seasons to make it 6, to be along with Crochet for 6 solid seasons. And I think that if Dave Dombrowski were still here, I think he would get that done in a heartbeat, because he would identify that that's the number one target. And I think he would have a package together of Tolle and Meyer. Now, whether you think that's too strong or not, that's great conversation. But also remember that we just gave up Teal for Crochet. So, and the left-hander that we had gotten in the draft. So you gave up 2 prospects, 2 strong prospects for that. Is Joe Ryan of that same class? Maybe not as much as Crochet, but could you imagine a situation where you just trade those 2 guys, get a guy like Ryan, extend him, and stay out of the free agent nonsense? Nick Diamond, your reaction to that thought?
I think that's the most ideal thing you can do. If you want to bring up the package, I think you're going to have to pay more at the deadline than you would do in the offseason. So I do think I would 100% put Tolle in that deal. I think there's an argument to be made about Meyer, saying that he was ranked higher than both Teal and Braden Montgomery at the time of the Crochet trade. And I would like to see Marcelo Meyer on this team long term. But Peyton Tolle, put him in that trade deal. You're replacing a pitcher with Joe Ryan. Even if Peyton Tolle becomes...
Love Red Sox Digest? And stop freeloading and subscribe already. Free subscribers get recaps, rants, and the occasional emotional breakdown, just like Craig Breslow with the trade deadline. Upgrade to a paid subscription and unlock the full archive. Subscriber-only game breakdowns, behind-the-scenes audio rants, exclusive mailbag Q&As, plus live chat and post-game streams where we scream into the void together. And if you're a true sicko, become a founding member and we'll put you on the podcast. That's right, a guest appearance on Red Sox Digest. Hit subscribe. It's cheaper than Fenway beer and way more satisfying.
Ace in 3-4 years. Joe Ryan's going to be a good pitcher for 3 to 4 years. I promise you that. He's not going to fall off a cliff. He's going to pitch great in Fenway. I think he's a gamer. I love watching him pitch. I think he's going to do good. So I would 100% put Peyton Tolley in there. If it gets done without Marcelo Meyer, then I would love that. But if it has to put Marcelo Meyer in there, I think you can get by with Omi Gonzalez and whatever else at second base for at least this year. You might have to go sign someone else in the offseason. If you have Garrett Crochet and Joe Ryan for 3 years at 1 and 2, you're going to compete. I promise you. If you have Garrett Crochet, who's probably top 3 pitcher in this league. I don't think anyone in this podcast is going to debate that at this moment. More than we've ever hoped for. And Joe Ryan's probably a top 10 to 15 pitcher in the league. If you have 2 aces at the top of your rotation, you're going to make the playoffs and you're going to do well in the playoffs. And I think that's perfectly fine to give up a package at that price. And it might not even be that high. It might not. So I think you do whatever you can to get him out there. And you still have him for 2 years. You can get the extension done in the offseason if it has to happen. I see a lot of people saying put Duran in that package. I don't think the Twins want Jarren Duran. I think it'd have to be a 3-team deal with the Padres or the Phillies. I think those are 2 potential options to make a 3-team deal. Maybe even the Mets. I don't think they have much prospect capital though. So I don't know if that will happen, but let's see if Breslow can get creative if he wants to make this happen and keep Marcelo Meyer on the team. You'd have to do a 3-team deal. And I don't know if he's capable of that. If he is, that'd be awesome, but we'll see.
Yeah, before I ask you, Nick Face, I was going to say the same thing. It is possible that you could get a 3rd or 4th team involved in this deal where it allows you to hold on to a Marcelo Meyer and the prospects come from another team like San Diego. But, Duran is on his way out. You acquire Ryan, and then the Twins get 2 or 3 pieces out of that. Nick Face, your thoughts on that trade and the idea of having him as a number 2 and really avoiding the free agent market this winter?
I think the Twins are going to be a team that is selling. The more that we hear about new ownership and all this other things going on, and it's going to come down to, and I think I have to also say, a 3-team deal. And we've heard so many things about the Padres really wanting Duran. That would ideally be where he would go. And then it's going to come down to figuring out the prospects that go back to Minnesota if the Red Sox are able to get Joe Ryan. I think in theory, that is the most sense, where we hopefully would not have to part with the Marcelo Meyer. Because I think if you had to do that, that would be one of those things that would be painful. It would be one of those things where you kind of had to look back on the Chris Sale 2017 deal or 2016, whatever the heck that was, when we had to part with Juan Moncada and Michael Kopech at the time. And a lot of people around here are up in arms. How can you get rid of Juan Moncada? He's going to be the next superstar. That's insane. Well, it's the price of doing business. And I think Dave Dombrowski got not a fair start to his Red Sox job hunt when he first came here from that. But are we talking about Michael Kopech? Are we talking about Juan Moncada? No. The question here, what is Marcelo Meyer going to be? We really don't know the answer to that. We've seen glimpses. We're hopeful that he's going to be good. But if it becomes somebody of a talent like a Joe Ryan to go and get, sleep over it, I do that deal every day. Give me some proven commodity that can improve this team over not just the now factor, the long term. And when you can put Crochet, Joe Ryan, Brian Bayo, Lucas Giolito, if they pick the option up or if it's triggered or whatnot, that's one hell of a rotation, guys.
Yeah, I am a firm believer when you have an opportunity to get a front-end starter from another team, you have to do everything you can to try to acquire that player. And the reason for that is because there are only a handful of top-tier pitching talents in the major leagues, and there are 30 teams, and there is just as much opportunity for any other team to try to acquire that player as you. And when you are presented that option, when a team says, we are making Chris Sale available, we are making Pedro Martinez available, we are making Kurt Schilling available, we are making whatever, Chris Sale available, whatever it may be, you have to do what it takes to get it done. And it is a lot harder for Major League Baseball to produce another Joe Ryan, another Chris Sale, another Pedro Martinez, than it is to produce another Marcelo Meyer, another Willie Abreu, another Trevor Story, another Brandon Montgomery, and you get the idea here. Pitching always over hitting in my mind, and that's what you have to do. Will I miss Mayer? I don't know. He's only been here a couple months. He's a nice player so far, but I'll take the pitching 7 days a week. Keep in mind this. The 4 championships we have from 2004 on, every one of those winning championship seasons had 2 aces at the front of that rotation every single time. So I think it's very important to go that route. Switching gears a little bit here, I know Nick Diamond brought it up a little bit. I want to talk about Abraham Toro. I have been an Abraham Toro supporter since day one when Casas went down. To my surprise, I will say, he has his quirks. He's not an everyday player, and he's made mistakes. My question to both of you is this. We saw a mental debacle today from him, and I started getting a little concerned. Is this something that our team can swallow down the stretch and be able to fix or pick him up when something like this happens? Or do we need a better quality first base option, a Matt Olson from Atlanta, if he is made available, or anyone else? I'm not a big Santana fan. I know Nick Diamond, you brought him up earlier on the show, just because I think he's more of a rental and he's 78 years old. So I worry about that, but I'd rather put someone there with term. Olson has term on his contract. Nick Face, start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
The Abe Toro experiment needs to end. I'm going to say that loud and clear right now. Thank you so much, Abe, for what you meant. But it's time that this team gets somebody in who's a veteran type, who knows how to play the game, who won't make mental mistakes, who can cover first base without us having to sweat it. Sometimes that footwork over there, guys, between those, what he's trying to catch, it scares the crap out of me. You never know what's going to happen from over there. And even at times it's with Romy Gonzalez. I think Romy is better at first base than Toro. I think Romy, it's a little bit scarier at second base. We've seen some issues, especially when the Giants series was there. The question here, it comes down to, what would you love? I would love a Matt Olson. If that became something that we're going to do, I think it would cost quite a bit, though, from the Braves if that's coming. The interesting one that came out this week, I don't remember which reporter it was, but Yanni Diaz from the Rays, about the whole thing where he's going to become too expensive for the Rays and they're going to try and maybe get something of value for him before he hits free agency. That made it, that was pretty interesting, but then it comes down to making deals within the division. Would the Rays make a deal with the Red Sox with Yanni Diaz? I don't think that happens, but it's another name that's out there. I still can't come to grips, though, on what makes the most sense. Ryan O'Hearn does not scream, that is such a vast improvement. It just doesn't. I think they're just going to ride it out here a little bit. That's the scary part, and I don't love it. I think we may start seeing some tinkering, and I don't love that either, because you know how the Red Sox love to tinker. We're going to see a little bit of Marcelo Meyer at first. They're going to say, oh, well, Yoshida needs some time. We're going to throw him over at first base, Mr. 5'1". They're going to do this kind of dog and pony show, and it's going to frustrate the hell out of us all. Instead of going out and getting a proven major league caliber first baseman. I think we would have had one by now, guys. I think Breslow would have gone out after the Casas move and got a legitimate first base type, and he didn't. And now we're expecting the Red Sox to go and get one. I'm not going to hold my breath. I want it to happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it.
Nick Diamond, before I ask your reactions, I do want to throw this also out there. Since we're talking about Matt Olson, a middle of the order bat is really what it boils down to. The fact that he's a first baseman is obviously a need if we believe that Abraham Toro is not reliable down the stretch. Here's my point. Carlos Narvaez was your number 4 hitter today. And he's a catcher, as we all know. And he was pinch hit for. I have a big issue that your number 4 hitter is getting pinch hit for. It's not something you see very often, especially when you have a strong 3, 4, 5 hitter. Nick Diamond, your reaction to all of that?
First off, I wanted to bring up that Carlos Narvaez should never bat fourth against a right-handed pitcher. Ideally, he's like a 7-hole hitter, and I like Carlos Narvaez, but he's not a 4-hole hitter. If you asked him that, he'd probably say I'm not a 4-hole hitter. I do think first base is the least of our worries. I think you got to go get a frontline starter, and then you got to go get a reliever. I think those are 1A, 1B. And then first base, if you get one, you get one. Another name I want to bring up, Josh Bell, I think is an option, probably cheaper. But yeah, I would love to get a first baseman. Josh Naylor, to me, is probably the best one out there. Eugenio Suarez hasn't played first base. He plays mostly third, but I think you could put him at first base, and he's basically like Edwin Encarnacion in his prime. Hits bombs, strikes out a lot. I think he'd do well in the AL East, especially at Fenway. He's a right-handed pull hitter. He hit a lot of singles off that wall. He hit a lot of bombs off that wall. So I think he'd fit well at Fenway, and he'd be great in the 4-hole. But if they get a front-end starter and then a bullpen piece, I'd be happy with the deadline. I think if you go with Abraham Toro and Romy Gonzalez, it's serviceable. But I still don't like Abraham Toro, at least in the last month. He's been going downhill. Today was a really bad play at second base, getting doubled off there. But I think he's probably the third biggest issue at the deadline. But like you said, I'd love to improve.
Nick Diamond, another question for you. Nick Face brought up Yandy Diaz. What are your thoughts there over Josh Naylor, just because Naylor is a left-hander?
I think the power potential is better with Josh Naylor. And I think the other issue, like Nick Face said, was trading with the Rays. I don't want to trade with the Rays. I don't trust them. I don't trust our front office to see what they have value-wise. If the Rays are done with a guy, there's a good chance he's done. But what Yandy Diaz has done to the Red Sox in the past and other AL East teams, I would love to have him. He's a good contact hitter. I think he's having a down year, but I think he'd be fine in the middle of our order, and he'd be an improvement for sure. But again, I don't think the Rays will trade with us if they can help it, and I don't think I trust our front office to trade with the Rays. I think the Rays will fleece us.
I mean, we have traded with the Rays before. Obviously, Dombrowski got, Nathan Eovaldi for Jeremy Springs back in 2018. So, I mean, it is a possibility. But again, that was many years ago, and this is a completely different front office, as we all know. Nick Diamond,
I want to bring one more thing. Yeah. My Carlos Santana thing is he'd be a throw-in. I would want to get one of the relievers from Cleveland. If Emmanuel Clase is available, if Cade Smith is available, I'd go hard after one of those guys and then maybe throw in an extra prospect for Carlos Santana just to give him a go. I know he can still pick it over there at first base. He'd be a defensive improvement. He's an older rental, and he hasn't had a season with the bat, but he gets on base enough, he walks enough, and he's going to pick it at first base. So I think he'd be fine. Is he that much of an upgrade? No. But if you can get a reliever paired in that trade, I think it's a good thing to look at.
I agree. Of course, if I was trading with the Twins, I would try to get Joe Ryan and Johan Duran, but I don't know if that's even a possibility, but I would throw everything in the kitchen sink to get both those guys. I want to start closing thoughts. Nick Face, you first. Any particular things you want to bring up? Any rumors you've heard or anything about that?
One of the things that we didn't talk about is catching. I thought Carlos Narvaez had a terrible game today.
An area.
It's one of those things. He struck out twice. He had some questionable plays on the dish. In a perfect world, I would love another catcher.
Christian Vasquez?
Oh, yeah, it would be wonderful. That's like going from
we could expand this Twins deal really long.
Basically, that would be like going up on the Coldplay camera with the CEO and the girlfriend or whatever that was there having the affair. That's basically what that would be. We're not going down that road. We all know the Connor Wong. It looks like Cora is going to try to play him a little bit more, which I hate. I am concerned with Carlos Narvaez with the workload. I have to say that right now. I don't know what second half is going to be. Great first half. But we're going into an unknown territory that's here. Will he break down? Will he be able to give you more games? What's it going to look like? The bat over the past month has not been good. It has not. And I think a lot of that comes from a little bit of pressure being in that 4 spot. I don't know why Cora continues to do that. He is not a 4 hitter. But let's be real here. Do they really have a real 3 hitter? Do they have a 4 hitter? Do they have a 5 hitter? They really don't. They got a bunch of 6 hitters. maybe 7 hitters, maybe no hitters. No. But I do think if there's somebody out there that would improve behind the dish, I would entertain it. I'm just not going down the path of who's the guy in the Rays that we had last year? He was with the Blue Jays that we gave up like 4 or 5
Danny
props for. Thank you. I'm not doing that again. I'm just not. It's got to help. It's got to be a veteran type, not known as Christian Vasquez. Let's just put it there. If they bring Christian Vasquez here, I'm going to go hit my head up against a wall. I am. I'm done. That guy is done. Can we just stick a fork in him? When I saw that rumor come out, I don't know who had it. I think I got the biggest headache of my life seeing that. I really did. I'm done with that whole reunion. Goodbye. So I guess that would be my biggest thing, is to figure out what's out there, see if you can improve on anything, and maybe you can make a deal.
Big time.
I want more Connor.
You're closing.
The catching area, I think you could go with Sean Murphy. Is a cool name that's out there. I think a lot of people will be interested in him. I think it would be cool to see if you could get him and then split time at first base and catcher. Sean Murphy could play a little first base and a little catcher, get Carlos Narvaez off his feet. Because I think a lot of it has to do with the workload with Carlos Narvaez. I think he's already caught most games in his career at this point. And I don't think we ever expected him to be this good with the bat. So he is coming back down to earth, and I think we all expected that. Another name that was brought up today, I think it surfaced this morning, was Jose Soriano, who was a pitcher from the Angels. To me, he's really close to Brian Bayo, really close arsenal, sinker guy, a lot of ground balls, sinker changeup guy. I wouldn't mind him. I really wouldn't, but I still think I would aim higher if I was the Red Sox. I do like him more than Charlie Morton, though, if it comes down to that. He's only 26 years old. I don't know how much the Angels are going to sell. I think they're only about 2 games under 500, but the Angels have a dumb front office. Sometimes they don't do what's always necessary. So I think he's an interesting name that we could look out for.
So I'll leave you with this. Charlie Morton, if they go out and get someone like him, then you might as well just chalk this up to another, 2022, 23, 24, deadline, because they're not serious if they go and get a guy like him. You can't keep bringing in guys that are like, my age. So in any event, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Red Sox Digest. Please go ahead and subscribe to our digital product online at redsoxdigest.com, where we bring you just about every day a wrap-up of the games from the night before, and also some other great articles as well. Fenway Flashback, finally got that right, which Thayer has been writing about 1975 and that season. And one thing I will say, if the Red Sox are going to go ahead and make any kind of trades, please try to do it earlier than later. Whatever you do acquire, if it's Ryan or not, you want to get as many at-bats or as many starts or as many sessions in the bullpen as you possibly can. Don't wait till the last minute. Do it right away. That'll wrap it up, everybody. Have a good night.